Hello, hello. It's Anne. How are you? I am so excited to share this training. Let me just quickly tag everyone inside of the Facebook group. What is this group called these days? Just recently changed it. That's the one. And I see that I'm live. So let me just tag it, everyone. So hopefully you will get a notification. If you are free to join me, hop on, say hello as you are joining me. Let me know where in the world you are joining me from, because it's always fun. This group has just hit 100 members, which is another fun fact. So I'm super excited about that. And this topic that I'm talking about today has been the thing that has shifted so much for me in my life and in my business. So I've called this training the Millionaire Expansion Codes, and it's really to share about, money blocks and how to clear them as they come up at so many different levels as we scale our business, right? So let me ask you a question. What if the biggest thing holding you back from whatever the number is, 6 figures, multiple 6 figures, 7 figures of success, is invisible to you? You are completely unaware of its existence. What if it's nothing to do with a marketing tactic or you actually having to do more, right? But it's a hidden money block in your own mind. I vividly remember the day I realized I was the one capping my income. Yeah. So a few years ago, I had a multi-7-figure offline business. And, we were doing pretty well. I didn't even think for a moment that I had any money blocks, right? And I was about 2 years into my online business, coaching business, and I was doing all the right things. I was working when I could and implementing all the strategies. Yet I kept hitting this kind of ceiling, right? A revenue ceiling. And I felt like my business had plateaued. And it was incredibly frustrating because no matter what I did, that didn't seem to be changing, right? And I just couldn't figure out why I couldn't sort of break through that level. And here's the thing that I discovered, that I had an internal belief about money that was sabotaging my growth. Actually, there was a couple of internal beliefs that were going on for me at that time, because I had experienced some burnout in my corporate career, and I think starting my online business whilst already having an offline business and having kids and elderly parents that I was supporting, I was a little bit worried about burning out again, but I'll leave that for another time. But one of the more obvious ones was I was secretly afraid that if I charged premium prices, clients would just say no. They just wouldn't pay me, right? And I'd lose business. This fear of charging more was a classic money block, and it was completely running the show behind the scenes. And once I confronted this and kind of worked through it and cleared that block, things changed almost instantly, right? Within months, I went from, 10K months, the occasional 20K month prior to this point, but I was mainly kind of quite stuck around that 10K month mark. And I very quickly started hitting 50K months, right? I think I had one 30K month, and then I went to 50K months. And a year later, with a little bit more clearing of beliefs along the way, I actually hit 100K months. And it wasn't because I suddenly started working more. I wasn't working 24/7, right? My lifestyle wasn't going to allow that, and I didn't want that. It was because I finally gave myself the permission to scale by changing actually how I thought, by charging more also, but by changing how I thought about money. Yeah. And here's the thing, I'm not alone. Over the years, I have coached many other entrepreneurs who were unknowingly held back by similar limiting money beliefs. Maybe you can relate to some of these, right? Let me know in the comments. If you're live, say hello. If you're watching the replay, also drop a hashtag replay and let me know how this lands for you. Have you ever thought people won't pay that much for my services? Or I need a bigger audience before I can even think about high ticket offers? Or if I want to double my income, I'll have to work twice as hard. That's a classic one. And I'm already exhausted. I had that, right? Because I mentioned to you I'd been burnt out previously in my corporate career. Do any of these sound familiar? These kinds of beliefs often picked up from our upbringing, past experiences, or even just industry myths, right? It's what people talk about around us. These can act like invisible scripts in our heads, right? I don't know how else to describe it. This kind of programming, right? And they create a psychological income ceiling. In fact, there are so many studies that have been done on this, right? And experience show that your inner game, your mindset, your beliefs, play a bigger role in your earnings than any external factor. You can hustle all day long, but if your subconscious money programming or wealth thermostat, as I like to call it also, is set to a particular number, let's say 6 figures, and no higher, you will unconsciously sabotage going beyond that, right? No amount of strategy will help you at that point. Here's the good news though. You can change those internal scripts, right? You can change the programming, right? And today in this training, I'm going to talk about just 3 of the biggest money mindset blocks that I experienced and I see my clients experiencing too, right? That keep coaches, consultants, entrepreneurs like you and me stuck at a level and can't get past it, right? These are the 3 key mindset shifts that made the biggest difference to my next level and have done the same for my clients. When you make these shifts, you'll find that scaling to multiple 6, 7, whatever number you want, right, becomes not only possible, but it actually becomes surprisingly easy, right? Because we have removed the blocks, the barriers that make us feel that it's going to be hard. And it's all up here. So the first mindset shift is embracing the belief that money is abundant and people will happily pay higher prices if you offer transformational value, right? This is not about putting a high price tag on something that's just not worth it. But this is about, I'm mostly talking to coaches, consultants, course creators. You're doing life-changing work, right? and you are solving big problems that people have. You're helping people to achieve their deepest desires. And people are willing to pay for that, right? So one of the most common blocks I see is the fear that people won't pay that much, whatever that much is, right? This often comes from a scarcity mindset around money, or our own assumptions about what others can afford. We disempower people the moment we decide for them that whether they can afford you or not afford you, right? It's none of your business, quite honestly. And I faced this myself. I used to cap my offers. I used to, because I assumed charging, say, 20,000 or 20,000, 10,000 or 20,000 or whatever the number was, right, for a program would scare people off, that no one would ever pay that. In reality, that was a story in my head, not a fact in the marketplace, because people were paying a lot more than that. So here's the reframe. Premium clients exist at every price point, right? They exist at every price point. There are individuals and businesses out there right now actively looking to invest significantly in solutions that really solve their problems. Yeah. The issue wasn't that people won't pay. It was that I didn't believe I was allowed to charge more, right? My own sense of what my services were worth was limiting me. As soon as I tested that assumption by offering a higher tier package, guess what? Not only did people pay those premium prices, they got better results because they were more committed at the higher investment level, right? This taught me that charging premium prices is actually a service to those ready for bigger results, right? It requires them to step up, and they do. People need to feel expanded. If they don't feel anything from the investment that they make, they are not going to show up for it. Yeah. And I've learnt this time and time and time again. Right? I got to 50K months with a $5,000 offer. Right? And the first time I got to 50K months, it was $5,500, and I needed 9 sales. The next time I got to 50K months, I did it with 4 sales because I increased my pricing. The very next month. Yeah. I got to 100K months with 5 sales. 5 clients, right? And I think I got to 10K months with 4 clients back in the day. So people will pay. One of my incredible clients, Fiona, who'd been charging sort of that mid-ticket rate and was stuck at around that sort of, I don't know, I think 8K per month revenue mark. She had a belief that her clients, right, wouldn't pay more than around that $4,000 for a package. So together we identified that this was just a bullshit belief, a money block, stemming from her own feelings about what she would pay, right? And some old advice that her niche was price sensitive. At the time, she was really focused on helping therapists, and there was this belief that they were price sensitive because they were charging by the hour. And I challenged her to create a high ticket offer at around that $10,000, $12,000 mark, right? It was a bigger offer. It was more comprehensive. It was a higher touch version of her service, right? There was more to it. It wasn't that we just took her previous 4K offer and added a higher price point to it, right? We created a bigger transformation. And she was, she increased the price. She was nervous, right? But she was really open to it. And she went for it. And she signed 2 clients at the highest, at that 10K plus mark. I think 10K was like a early bird price point. And she did that within 2 weeks of increasing her price. She got 10K. So she'd been stuck at that kind of, I think it was around that 8K mark for a long time before she started working with me, right? And within 2 weeks, she had made $20,000 for that month. And she went on to have a $40,000 next month, right? So people are willing to pay, right? The only thing that's stopping them is you and your own belief system. And this is a perfect example of shifting beliefs, right? To create a new reality. Your current thinking is what got you here. It won't get you there, right? Unless you shift your thinking. The truth is, money is not scarce. It's flowing all around us. Yeah. There's unlimited abundance around us. One person's success does not mean that another person suffers or isn't successful. There's enough for everyone. Even if you might not personally invest, say, $20,000 in a program, there are plenty of people who will, if they believe it will solve their urgent problem and fulfill a deep desire, right, that they have. High-end coaching and consulting is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Yeah. Premium clients pay for value and they expect to invest at a higher level to get exceptional results. You will never attract a premium client with a cheap offer because they will immediately think that the offer won't meet their needs. If you position your offer to communicate like extraordinary value and outcomes, you will find there's an abundance of willing high-ticket clients out there. So instead of asking, will people pay that much? Start asking, how can I increase the value and the perceived value of what I deliver so the right people will pay premium prices, right? So let me just share a quick story about perceived value, right? I've shared this in other trainings and I think it might be worth just dropping it in here right now. So there was an experiment that was done with some wine tasting. 3 bottles of wine with exactly the same contents. The wine was exactly the same, but had 3 different price points, right? And 3 different labels. But the wine itself was exactly the same inside the bottle. Everyone who tasted the wine perceived the more expensive wine as being the best. It was exactly the same wine. That's what I mean by perceived value, right? And a side note, a quick reflection you can do later is ask yourself, what is the most I've ever invested in myself or my business, right? That's the first question. Then consider, what is the most I've ever asked someone to invest in me? in my offer. If the second number is far smaller than the first, that's a hint that your own money ceiling might be affecting your pricing, right? It's food for thought. It's food for thought. I'm going to move on. The second big mindset shift is understanding that you don't need a massive following, right? This was huge for me because I came online with nothing, right? As most people do when they start their business. And I didn't have time to do all the things to grow my audience fast or any of that. So my audience was growing at a reasonably slow rate. Yeah. You don't need a massive following or giant email list to reach big numbers. I still don't have it today. Yeah. I still don't have it today. I've shared inside of this group how, $35,000, more than $35,000 from about a tiny group of 47 people. Yeah. So in other words, quality of audience and offer beats the quantity of audience. Yeah. You need quantity when you're selling low ticket, for sure. For sure. But if you're selling premium services, you don't. A lot of entrepreneurs plateau because they think, I can't scale to those numbers without tens of thousands of followers or a big ad budget, right? This is a classic objection that I want to directly reframe for you right now. I had this too, right? I had this belief too. And another client of mine, Tamika, was doing about 100,000 a year. She was around that six-figure mark a year, right? Selling only one-on-one offers with a very small and minimal social media presence, right? I've talked about her in other trainings too. Brilliant woman, right? But she had a very, very small presence on social media. She believed she had to build a huge audience before launching a premium offering. This belief kept her waiting and holding back on offering her group program as well. She was only selling one-to-one at that point, right? And I think her best month before she worked with me was around that sort of 12K mark. That she was capped, yeah. She had a belief it was her audience and that was it. We worked on flipping that story and she designed a high ticket group offer aimed at a very specific problem for her for a very specific type of client, right? She was in a very niche industry in construction as it happens as well. And instead of trying to market it to the masses, she initially personally reached out to a handful of ideal prospects that she already knew. And she also mentioned it in conversations to a few existing clients. And within a few weeks, she significantly increased the investment for her one-to-one and then focused on selling her group offers only, right? So her audience didn't grow at all, but she did pay a small amount. I think it was $97 a month maximum. It wasn't a big amount to promote in just one Facebook group, right? Where her ideal client was. And she ended up her previous year was roughly around that $100,000 mark. And she ended up making a profit of $300,000 in the year that she worked with me, in 1 year, right? Her previous year's profit was around $60,000. Yeah. Stories like Tamika's aren't unusual. The truth is, you can explode your income with a small audience when you focus on, when you let go of the story, firstly, because that's just a bullshit limiting belief. It's just a story. But the actions that you take are a result of this story that you have in your head, right? And then that will obviously impact the results that you see and you get. So you have evidence that matches your belief system. Yeah. I've done a whole training on intimacy marketing as well, right? So I won't go into that in today's training because I want to keep it about money mindset. But if you're telling yourself, I need a bigger audience before I can make big money, it's time to change that belief. It's rubbish, right? Instead, think I can create big results from a small group of people, from a small audience, by offering incredible value, right? Focus on quality of your connections, not vanity metrics. In practical terms, this might mean nurturing relationships with your existing contacts, leveraging referrals even, maybe, yeah, or connecting in a different way, right? In high trust environments, speaking in a small industry event, or, in a mastermind. Or I covered a lot of this inside of Intimacy Marketing, the training. So if you haven't seen it, drop a hashtag intimacy and I will get you the link so you can watch it. It also means creating an offer that's so compelling and results driven that it doesn't require a huge marketing machine to sell it, right? Just a few genuine conversations can fill it. And I went into this, like I said, in a lot more detail inside of that other training. Intimacy marketing. So ask yourself, if I could only work with 10 clients next year, only 10 next year, whole of next year, total 10, how would I find them and what would I offer them to hit my income goals? It's a really good question. It completely shifts the way you think. This thought experiment forces you to think quality over quantity, right? And you might realize you could hit your dream income with a handful of great clients, which is incredibly freeing, liberating, and the complete opposite of mass marketing that you currently think you need to do, right? Your audience isn't your limitation. Your mind is, right? And this is something I focus on inside of my mastermind and with my private clients all the time, right? The mindset side. Moving on. The third mindset shift is recognizing that scaling to your next level is about who you are becoming internally, right? And how you refine your strategy externally, not about simply doing more, right? This is about who you become internally and about how you refine your strategy so you're not just doing more to make more, right? But you're simplifying things. I call this recalibrating your internal wealth thermostat. Just like a thermostat control for temperature in a room, we each have an internal setting, right? For how much success or money we believe we deserve or can handle, can hold, right? I wrote a post about this yesterday too. If we don't adjust that setting, we will subconsciously cool things down, right? Keeping in theme with the thermostat. We will cool things down whenever we start exceeding our comfort zone. Yeah. Here's the thing. Many of you don't actually want the thing you think and you say that you want. I know that sounds crazy, but that's the truth. And that's the reason why you don't have it, right? The reason is subconscious. And unless you address it, you will not get what you want. Because somewhere deep inside of you, you don't actually want it, right? Have you ever noticed, okay, before I go into what you may have noticed, let me kind of say one more thing about what I just shared. You might think, Anne, what the heck are you talking about, right? I want more money. I need more money. I want to work with more clients. It's not so much that you don't want more money or you don't want more clients, right? Your subconscious blocks are more to do with the consequences that come with having more money or having more clients. Yeah. So I'll go back to where I was heading before. Have you ever noticed how you might hit a big month, 1 month, maybe 2 months in a row, and then somehow the next month drops off, or an unexpected expense comes up, yeah, a big bill that you weren't expecting? That's often your internal thermostat at work, bringing you back to what feels safe and familiar, right? You may not even realize this. It's very likely you don't, right? Some people are addicted to the struggle. To reach six-figure months, six-figure years, whatever the number you want, or any big income leap, you have to intentionally raise that setting, right? Your internal thermostat. Part of this shift is deeply psychological. It's giving yourself permission to succeed at a much higher level and doing the inner work to feel worthy of it. Yeah. Many entrepreneurs have hidden beliefs like making huge money will change me or my life in a negative way. Yeah. Or if I make way more, others, could be family, could be peers, could be friends, might judge me. Or even, I'm already working hard. This is a classic one. I'm already working hard, so more success will mean more work and will feel very, very overwhelming. Yeah. These are really powerful subconscious blocks. So I had this beautiful client who very, very, very sadly, she passed away last year from cancer. I worked with her maybe 4-ish years ago. And I actually only worked with her on money. At that time, I had a couple of offers. It was quite early on, and I was teaching money mindset separately from business. She could not seem to grow her income past a certain level of income, right? She just couldn't. It turned out she had some underlying beliefs that stemmed from her childhood. And she had a sort of difficult relationship with her mother as a child. And it stemmed from her mother telling her that she'd never amount to anything. Yeah. This wasn't obvious until we dug into her stories, right? Her money stories. And we were doing a lot of deep money work. She also believed if her business grew too much, she'd have no time for her own family, right? These beliefs formed her wealth thermostat setting, right? And no surprise, she unconsciously kept stopping her results to stay around that same level. She could never get past it. So she had sort of a nursing career before she came online as an entrepreneur, and she never earned more than that sort of nursing income, right? Through money mindset coaching and what I call sort of a money recode that we did, a deep dive session to rewrite a lot of those beliefs and so on, she was able to let go of a lot of guilt and fear and, beliefs that she'd been carrying for years. And she decided that making money would honor her family because she could help them and she could help others. She just was a very caring, helping kind of person, right? So it really was about reframing so much around money and deserving money and all of that kind of thing. And that she could structure her business in a really balanced way as well to overcome any of her concerns around the impacts it would have on her family. Within the very same week, right, it was actually a 6-day intensive that I did with just 3 women. It was a very intimate container, right? And she was one of the 3 women. All the women had incredible breakthroughs that week. But within the same week that we were working together and we did this money work, she unexpectedly, out of nowhere, received a check for $100,000. $100,000. She shared a photo of the check inside of our little mini container, right? But she did not want anyone to know. So I couldn't even publicly really talk about it either, right? Only this little group of us knew about it. And of course, her husband knew. And she wasn't expecting it, right? And it was the equivalent to her entire previous year's income. And the only explanation was that she opened herself up to receiving it, right? I actually only worked with that particular client on money mindset, right? We just did this intensive. We stayed connected for a long time before and after, but that's the work that we did. I actually didn't work with her around strategy, business strategy, or anything else. It was an intensive that I was running at that particular time. And we talked about how she could structure her pricing and things. It was more from a money perspective, and hire team members to support her to overcome some of her blocks and that kind of thing. And in fact, I connected her with my VA at the time, who she ended up hiring. But here's the key: you won't effectively make those strategic moves if your mindset is stuck in the old stories. Yeah. How many times have we known what to do but not done it? Yeah. That's usually an inner resistance issue. Once you handle the inside, the outside tweaks become much easier and they actually stick, right? It comes down to this fundamental principle. your business growth will rarely exceed your personal growth. I don't know who said that, but I've heard that many times. Yeah. Have you heard the quote, your income can only grow to the extent that you do? Again, I don't know who said that quote, but I've heard that, right? If you try to pile new strategies on top of a mindset riddled with doubt, fear, limiting beliefs, right? You'll sabotage the strategy. The strategy won't work. On the other hand, when you work on your mindset, right, upgrade your identity to that of a multi-six, seven-figure entrepreneur, or whatever number it is that you desire, you start making decisions and taking action in alignment with that identity. If you keep making decisions in alignment with your current identity, which is not where you want to be, then it's going to keep you exactly where you are, right? You begin to think, if you shift your identity, you begin to think, how would a seven-figure business owner handle this? And you act accordingly, right? That might mean saying no to misaligned clients, setting higher boundaries around your time, or finally launching that bold initiative, right, you've been putting off. I would hazard a guess every single one of you watching this now has something bold that they are putting off, right? Because of fear, doubt, or whatever the case might be. This internal upgrade leads to directly leads to the external results. Yeah. In fact, many people find that once they do the inner work, the opportunities or efficiencies to scale practically fall into their lap because they're now able to see them, right? Because they couldn't see them before. We're walking around with blinkers because we only see what we believe is there, right? It's like tuning a radio. Once you calibrate to the right frequency, which is your mindset, right? The music, which is the opportunities and the strategies, come through so much more clearly, right? Here's the thing. Scaling isn't about doubling your work, right? It's about shifting your internal state and fine-tuning your external approach, the strategies, right? Ask yourself, what beliefs about money, success, or myself might be holding me at my current level? And write them down, right? This is increasing this awareness is incredibly powerful work. Those are your money blocks to clear, right? And simultaneously consider what high leverage changes you can make in your business strategy, right? It's both. It's not just one or the other, right? We need to do both. We need to do the mindset work. We need to do the energetics work, and we need to do the strategic work, right? To allow the growth with ease, like raising prices, streamlining your offer suite, outsourcing low value tasks to a virtual assistant. When your mindset and strategy align, scaling feels less like a struggle and more like an easy next step, right? So remember, internal recalibration and external refinement are the two things that go hand in hand, right? And they beat hustle and burnout every single time. So throughout these shifts, I've shared a few client stories, right? But I want to highlight how powerful these mindset changes can be in practice to build your trust in this process. Every transformation that I've witnessed, whether my own journey or my clients' breakthroughs, have reinforced that these inner shifts are the absolute things that have led to the outer success. Yeah. So, for instance, I once had a coaching moment with a client, and let's just call her Alice, right? I've actually never worked with a client called Alice, but I'm going to call her Alice, that I'll never forget, right? She was an experienced coach. Again, she was stuck at around that 10K mark, right? And she was convinced, she was absolutely convinced that was her max, because her industry, again, right, just wouldn't support higher fees. She was absolutely adamant about that belief, right? In one session, I felt she needed a kind of, a bit of a nudge. And I asked, what would your business look like if you doubled your prices tomorrow? Who would you need to become to make that happen? Yeah. I remember how she responded. Like, she was sort of initially she was like about to throw 100, objections, and she admitted she'd never even imagined doubling her fees. Yeah. But then she said, if I doubled my prices, I'd have to really own the value of what I do. I'd probably also focus on a completely different caliber of client, the ones who see my service as an investment, not an expense. Right? She came up with that herself. In that moment, I could see everything shifting. It was like magic. I could see her eyes change, her posture changed, everything changed. Her belief changed in that moment. It wasn't really about the money. It was about her stepping into a more powerful version of herself. One who can, charge double because she delivers that value. Over the next few months, she gradually implemented this. I mean, she was really, really adamant, right, before this session. So even though I saw that immediate shift happen, right, a few wobbles followed, and but over the next few months, she gradually implemented some changes, increased her pricing. She let go of her lower paying clients. She eventually doubled her prices for her new ones, and repositioned her messaging to speak to that higher level client. Within 6 months, she was making 30K months, right? But more importantly, she told me, she felt like a CEO. She felt like she was in charge in her business now, not at the mercy of it, which is how she felt before. She felt very, very stuck in this kind of, she was like, it's the industry, and, it's these people, they won't pay more. And, she felt like she had no control, but she did. She absolutely did. She was just stuck in her beliefs at that time. And that's the kind of internal empowerment that comes from clearing your money blocks, right? It's not just the extra revenue, it's the confidence and control you gain, which then spills into how you show up for your business, for your clients, how you lead, right? Which then, it's like this snowball effect, which then results in even better outcomes for everyone, right? So I share these examples because I want you to see that these are not just theories, right? This is not just theories. They're real shifts that real people have made, and you can make them too. So if you've resonated with even one of the stories or objections we discussed, it's a sign that some part of you is ready to break that pattern, right? The fact that you are watching this now, looking for more knowledge around this, tells me that you are exactly the kind of entrepreneur who's ready for a major breakthrough, right? You know at some level that this work has to be done, right? Sometimes it just takes a fresh perspective, a few little tweaks, and someone to say, yes, this is possible for you, right? It's absolutely possible for you to unlock that next level, to reach that kind of level that right now feels completely out of your reach. So by now, you've learned that clearing money blocks and scaling isn't about magic or about hustling more, right? It's about aligning your mindset with your ambition and aligning your strategy with your strengths, right? Your skills, your strengths. So we've covered how believing in the abundance of high-paying clients changes your power immediately, right? How focusing on depth over breadth, like going deeper rather than wider, means you don't need to be kind of internet famous or, have a huge audience in order to hit big numbers. And how doing this inner work of raising your wealth thermostat is the game changer, right? It's what will allow for more sustainable and exponential growth. So to close off, let's just recap the core shifts quickly before we move forward. Money is abundant, right? High ticket clients are out there and willing to invest, right? Your job is to deliver and communicate your incredible value, right? No more undercharging or doubting your worth. Number 2, a small audience can deliver a really big income. You can scale massively with a boutique audience by maximizing, obviously, conversions, right? And value per client. Focus on your ideal clients and don't get distracted by vanity metrics, right? It is the biggest waste of time. And number 3, internal recalibration and external refinement. Your next level of income requires a next level of thinking, right? The thinking that got you here will not get you there. So shift your beliefs, elevate them, your identity, right? This is your internal work, and really fine-tune your business model and offers, right? That's the strategic part that also needs to be done alongside, right? That's the leverage. So you're working smarter, not harder, right? With these insights, you already have a high level blueprint for breaking through any plateau you might be experiencing, right? This training in itself is a powerful catalyst. Watch it again if you need to. And you basically have two options from here. You can take these ideas and try to implement them on your own. Do this work, right? No matter what. It's a matter of, do you want to do this work on your own? Or you can get support to integrate them faster and more deeply and truly scale your business and life. If you are in the second camp, if you are feeling excited and maybe a little nervous, but in a good way, about what your business could do once you get out of your own way, then I invite you to send me a DM. Yeah. I'd love to invite you to continue this journey with me in a more intensive way, right? In a more private container or inside of my mastermind. I don't work with absolutely everyone that I speak to. Sometimes I'm not the best person, but we could have a conversation in the DMs. If I feel I can support you, I will tell you how. If I don't think I'm the best person to support you, I have so many people that I could refer you to. This work is incredibly powerful, incredibly effective. It mustn't be ignored. You can absolutely achieve everything that you desire. You just have to shift some of your thinking, your beliefs, clear the blocks, and I look forward to celebrating your wins. So if you have any questions at all, drop them in the comments. Reach out to me in the DMs if you want to find out more. I'm certified in money mindset work. When I discovered my own blocks, I went ahead and I invested a lot of money in learning more and more around money mindset too, especially important when you're selling high ticket offers. So this is what I do every day. This is what we're doing inside of the mastermind this week as well. So I thought it would be fun to come and share some of this in this free group. And yeah, I'll see you on the internet. Thanks for watching. Bye.